Welcome back, 2D. We are working on our pumpkin tutorial today. The purpose of this tutorial is to review with you the skills we use when we layer up our colors, especially when we're trying to create depth. I just wanted to remind you we're using the food coloring you can get at Walmart in case you run out and want to just run over and get some more. It comes in the primary colors plus green. I'll go ahead and stick with the primaries just since not everyone has access to the full set from home. Mostly I used red and yellow. Eventually I get to all three. Remember that your yellow does look like orange in the beginning. So the first thing we're going to do is create what we call a light wash of our pumpkin shape. In fact, we're going to do 3 pumpkins. Now this tutorial for me wasn't my best. I feel like there's some things I did in the video that I wish I wouldn't have done, but because of time I can't go back and reshoot the video. So what you're seeing me do now is create a watery consistency. You might remember that when layering watercolor, it's best to work with thinner layers that are lighter in the beginning and then work your way up to the more concentrated layers at the end. When you make your pumpkins, you do not have to do my exact sizes, shapes, or arrangements. I want to encourage you to do multiple pumpkins if you can, so that you're really pushing your skills. So I'll give agency points for the amount of pumpkins you do. However, if you think that it's best after looking at this tutorial to just maybe focus on one really good pumpkin, obviously do what you need to do to be successful. So I have a tall, skinny orange pumpkin that's very pale right now, and now I'm making a watery consistency for my next pumpkin. For this one, I just wanted a more yellow base, and I was planning to make it a more round pumpkin as well. So I'm planning to put kind of a flat pumpkin in the front, and I just want to encourage you, if you're layering multiple pumpkins, make sure you do the background pumpkins first. So here I am spreading around my yellow. It was almost too concentrated in the beginning and kind of greenish for some reason, so I had to kind of clean it up and move it around a few times to get it right. Of course, you can tell I have this video sped up now so that you don't have to watch it in real time. And what I wish I would have done is right here. I should have stopped and blow dried my composition, because I'm about to layer on the green, and you'll notice that it sort of bleeds into the yellow pumpkin at the top right because it isn't dry enough yet. Obviously that is something I know, but I was just rushing, trying to get the tutorial done before I left work, so those things happen. Depending on what kind of pumpkins you're doing, you're gonna probably consider things like showing the bumps on the top and bottom, so that's your choice with the contouring. Now I've mixed a more concentrated version of the orange, maybe even you can darken it a little bit. Just work in thin layers, don't go so extreme so fast. This is really more of a sketching stage than anything. You're kind of mapping out the shapes. So as you go, you can always step it up and go darker little by little. What's hard to do is to work backwards once you've put those really harsh lines in. And with watercolor, remember, it's always going to look really harsh at the beginning. You can blend it just a little bit with water. I find that these food coloring, they're actually pretty forgiving, maybe even more so than what we've used in the past in the classroom. So yeah, when compared to true watercolor products, they tend to be more easily eroded and blended, I feel. So I'm curious what you think about that, having had some experience with our classroom materials. So I went in and used water and kind of softly blended the inside edge of that orange line. It was a little too harsh, a little too perfect. And I'm just going to play around and tinker with this. I start webbing the shadows at the bottom the way I've observed on real pumpkins. Hey, and if you have real pumpkins, by the way, That would not be a bad idea. Or pull up an image of a real pumpkin and exaggerate the contrast in the image, the photography, if you're looking at a photo. Those are all good ideas. This is off of imagination, just in memory, thinking about what I've observed before in still lifes. So anyway, I just developed my medium shades, and sometimes I might make again some smoothing, like what I'm doing right now with water, just to kind of soften the edges of those lines so that they're not super harsh and predictable and perfect. I wanted it to be a little bit more on the stylized or realistic scale, not so cartoony and flat. I did decide to go ahead and show a little bit of a kind of a pit at the top where a stem could come out, and in the end of the tutorial I'll add stems at the very end. So as I go through, I start to eventually make my way over to the darker shadows, and so I start to make neutrals. You might remember from our color mixing on day 1, we played around with neutrals. So even if all you're working with are these primary colors, you can actually just bring a tad bit of the missing primary color that you haven't used yet into the equation. That's obviously going to be probably your blue, since I'm working in orange, and that will help to create a type of brown. So test your colors on a test strip. Don't feel obligated to put them right into your art if you're not comfortable with it, and see if you can't make some nice variations. Maybe even plan them out ahead of time if you'd like, just to have that extra assurance that you have a good color palette. So you're going to aim for a light color in the beginning that's watered down. Then you're going to go into your more true colors in the medium range, and that's where you're going to be able to show those lines and in kind of the cracks of the pumpkin. And then eventually you're going to be where I'm at on this stage, and that's to do the shadow work. So you'll want to move towards something more neutral, some kind of warmer tone. So here I am playing with different types of browns. The first one was too cool and purple, the second one was too yellow and golden, and the third one I thought was best. It was more red-orange, the way the pumpkin appears to me. You'll see me add the shadows in. They're again pretty harsh in the beginning, and I will soften them shortly after with water. You can go back to other steps, like go back to the medium tones if you need to and overlap them. That's the beauty of watercolor, is it does have a transparency to it. So play around with those 3 layers on each pumpkin and then finish with details. I'm going to go ahead and speed up the rest of this video so you can see how it went. And just a heads up, I really struggled with the green one. I went back and forth doing lots of things. I just really wanted it to have a lot of character, the way that I remember the green ones looking in real life. I think I eventually got pretty close to what I had in my head, but it took some time. So yeah, be patient with the process. I think overall this whole composition took me about 20 minutes, and I felt like I was going really fast the whole time. So if you feel again that 3 is too much and you want to focus on 1 and just doing it really well, I won't deduct a lot of points. I'll just probably pull a couple agency points so that people who do 3 pumpkins get a slightly higher grade. But anyway, focus on what's going to be best for your level of learning and see what you can do. Focus on 3 layers though. Remember, light, medium, and dark. So when you reach the point that you're pretty satisfied with your composition, I want to encourage you to finish with a cast shadow on the surface. I did a pretty minimal job here. I could have definitely done some more, but I played around with neutrals and it just kind of tossed in a shadow representing the light hitting them more on the left side, and of course casting the shadow towards the right. It doesn't matter to me how your shadow appears, if it's left, right, centered, forward, backward, whatever you decide is fine. Just be consistent with your composition. And the reason why it'll be a nice benefit to have is it'll just kind of plant them down to the surface that they are supposedly sitting on and really sell that idea that they're 3D without, you know, being a little too floaty. So once I had my cast shadow on there, I decided to just go ahead and emphasize my shadows on the rest and make them look finished. And here you'll see me throw on some stems real rapidly. I don't put a lot of work into the stems. I find they're pretty basic, even when you do observe them in real life. A few scattered sketchy lines with highlights left in between, just little paper gaps, that tends to work. So don't over analyze those stems. So that's really about it today, guys. I just want you to make sure you submit your pumpkins to Pumpkin Tutorial Assignment on Echo. Can't wait to see how they turn out.